Hey everyone, I'm Ritti. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you how to make basic calligraphy brushstrokes, and I'm going to be telling you guys how important they are in calligraphy and hand lettering and how they make the basis of calligraphy. So yeah, without further ado, let's begin. So for the paper, you can actually use any kind of paper since this is just for practice purposes. As long as the paper is smooth, you can use any kind of paper. Regular printing paper is also fine. So I've made these lines on my own just using a ruler and a pencil, and you can do the same. So let's take a look at the first stroke, that is the upstroke. So upstroke is nothing but the stroke that moves in an upward direction and is really thin. So we apply really less pressure to get a nice and thin stroke that goes in the upward direction. Now it doesn't matter if it's straight or slanted or making a curve. That depends on you, on how you want to write and what your style of calligraphy is. But it's basically just moving your brush pen in the upward direction and making a really thin line. Now we make a downstroke. So a downstroke is completely the opposite of an upstroke. So it's basically moving down and it's really thick. So upstroke is really thin, whereas the downstroke is really thick. Now again, it can be in any direction. It can be slanting as well. Next, we have our overtone stroke. So overtone stroke is like a combination of an upstroke and a downstroke. So it basically moves up first and then it goes down. Just like that. And now another important thing about this is that the strokes should always be parallel to each other. Just like that. So doing something like that would be completely wrong because it's not parallel. So it should be parallel to each other. And now another thing that people do is that they add the more amount of pressure at the wrong time. So they start adding too much pressure in the beginning itself, and this is something that happens. So to avoid this, what we do is we add very little amount of pressure, and when the transition happens, we add more amount of pressure and we thicken the line up. So this comes with practice. Next, we have our undertone stroke, which is the completely opposite of our overtone stroke. Again, it's basically moving down and then upwards. And another important thing is that it should be parallel to each other, just like that. Doing something like that is completely wrong because you have both of these lines just colliding in the middle. Now another mistake people do is that they start removing the pressure too early, and something like this happens. If you look carefully, you can just, it's not a very smooth transition. So to avoid that, what we do is we make a thick down stroke, and when the transition comes, we slowly pick our brush pen up and then make an upstroke. You can do the same with the overtone strokes as well. Next, we have a compound curve. So a compound curve is like a combination of the previous two strokes we have. So it's like an overturn stroke and an underturn stroke put together. Now another important thing over here is that all the three strokes that we're making over here should be parallel to each other. just like that. Next, we have our ascending loop. The ascending loop is something like this. So it's like thin over here and then we make it thick. So just practice a few more of these. Next, we have our descending loop. So again, it's like the opposite of the ascending loop. It is first thick and then thin. Next, we have our oval stroke. So this is something which most people make mistakes in. So what people tend to do is they start the stroke from the top and end up getting something like this thing over here. As you can see, it's like a pointed thing at the top. If you look carefully, I've just zoomed in a little bit so you guys can see this area clearly. So how we avoid this is we start off from the middle over here, make a thin upstroke and a downstroke, and then join the upstroke together. And if you look at the difference between these two over here, it's very smooth transition, whereas over here, it's pretty rough. So the thing over here is that the starting point is the center, not the top. So we can do this the other way around as well. One is starting from this side and the other starting point can be from the left side as well. Both of these types of ovals are used. I'll show you how just in a little while. So now I'm going to show you how exactly these strokes are used and why they're so important in hand lettering. So let's start with taking an upstroke and we add it to an oval stroke. To an overtone stroke. So what this makes is an upstroke, an oval stroke, and an undertone stroke. It makes the letter A. So of course we can do modifications of these basic strokes according to our style and the way we letter. So that's why it's really important to use these brush strokes and these basic drills, because these are the ones that make the basis of calligraphy and hand lettering. Every single brush stroke makes up a single letter, and that's why it's very important for you to lift your brush pen up after every single stroke.